Perfect. Alrighty, I'm gonna let people in from the waiting room and you can get started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Cradle-to-Career Community Conversations event. I see folks are steadily joining from our waiting room. Thank you so much for joining us today. While we let folks get settled in virtually, if you can introduce yourself in the chat and include your name and your organization, that'd be great. We just want to get a sense of who we're talking to today and who took the time out to join us during our community conversations event. So please use the chat function to introduce yourself. And like I said, if you can put your full name and your organization, that'd be awesome. So I'll give it a few more moments for folks to join. I'm just waiting for it to kind of slow down a little bit for folks joining. Awesome. I see people putting in their name and organization in the chat. A lot of folks from county offices of education. Let's see. We have a couple colleges in here. Oh, wow, you guys are moving so fast. Okay. We even have some folks from the California Department of Education joining us. Some, let's see, School Board Association folks. This is great. So thank you again for joining. We'll go ahead and get started. I am Sydney Armendariz. I'm the Chief of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships here at Cradle-to-Career. I'll be your host today. And just to kind of give you some insight on what these conversations will look like, we definitely want to provide you information so everyone understands about the system that's in the works called Cradle-to-Career, and hear from you how you see Cradle-to-Career working in your industry and in your organization and those that you serve. Some sessions will be more working sessions and others might be a little bit more informative. So please feel free to join us. We're definitely trying to set a regular cadence for these meetings. So at the end, when we have time for some reflections, if you have any suggestions for topics or frequency of these meetings, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We do read the chat. We save it at the end of this, so we definitely appreciate your thoughts on this. So throughout today's conversation, please use the chat function to share your questions and comments with us. You can do that as we're talking. You don't have to wait for a Q&A session moment or anything like that. We do have folks from our communications team tracking that chat function. So if we say something and it prompts you to have a question, please put it in the chat and we'll definitely try to get to it as soon as we can. So to that end, we want to learn more about you. So I see everybody's still introducing themselves in the chat, but we want to launch a couple of polling questions so we can just better understand who's here today. So as you have comments, please, like I said, use the chat function. We'll be monitoring that in real time. So the first poll question is, what role brings you here today? Are you a researcher, a funder, educator, parent, community member, administrator, policy advocate, just anybody off the street and you heard about it and it sounded fun? We want to know. Please feel free to mark as many options as you feel reflects who you are and why you're here today. So we'll give you a couple seconds to check out that poll. And oh, educator is not on the poll. Okay, if you are an educator, probably just mark other for now and we'll know. Thank you for pointing that out. So we'll give it a couple seconds for everyone to respond. And if you're just joining us, we just launched a poll about what role brings you here today. And if you could also put your full name and organization in the chat, that would be great. Okay. Do we have enough responses in the polls? No.
Yeah, we're at 92%.
Okay, perfect. Okay. we can give it a couple more seconds and then we can go ahead and close the poll. Alrighty, let's see who we have here. Okay, Samantha, can you tell me the results of the poll, if you can share that?
Yeah, of course. Right now we're at 49% other. I'm assuming there's some educators mixed in there. But we have 28% researchers, 21% advocates, 22% administrators, 5% family members, and 20% community members.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. So it sounds like we have tons of people across the board, which is super helpful for us to know. That'll also help me to not speak in state acronyms. So I will do my best not to do that, since I know we have folks from all walks of life here today. So thank you so much for completing that poll. And so we have another poll. If you can go to the next slide for you all today. So the next poll is, have you joined any other C2C meetings? So we had a year-long planning process from 2020 to 2021. We also had C2C governing board meetings that started back in November of last year, ad hoc committee meetings, informational sessions. So if you can put that in the chat, actually, and it won't launch as a poll, if you can put that response in the chat, that'd be most helpful. Just let us know what other C2C meetings you've joined, and if you've been a part of the planning process, that'd be amazing for us to know as well. Great, so we have a couple folks that said none, so this will be your first one, welcome. We have a couple folks that have joined the planning process meetings. It looks like most folks that are responding in chat this is their first one. So you joined a good one. Not to say our other meetings weren't great as well, but you joined a good one. This is definitely more of a conversation and less just us talking at you. So, so I'm happy that you were able to join this one as your first C2C meeting. Let's see, we had a couple folks join C2C ad hoc meetings and our governing board meetings. Awesome. Someone said this is their first meeting, but they have perused our website. That's awesome. Okay, great. Well, that is good to know. Thank you so much. I think we might have like a couple more questions. We're definitely putting you to work today. So just stay tuned for us to ask you more questions. So we appreciate the participation that you're showing us here right now. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first, I'd like to welcome our new executive director, new and first executive director of Cradle-to-Career, Miss Mary Ann Bates. Mary Ann recently served as a senior fellow at the White House Office of Management and Budget, where she supported efforts to advance evidence-based policy and learning agendas that identify priority research questions. Prior to that role, she was the executive director of JPAL North America at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which aims to reduce poverty by ensuring that policy is informed by scientific evidence. She launched and co-chaired the JPAL State and Local Innovation Initiative, which brings state and local governments and academic researchers together to design studies and analyze data on how to effectively reduce poverty and advance opportunity. At JPAL, her team worked to spur and support landmark studies relevant to Cradle-to-Career policy issues. They built a research library and supported decision makers in applying insights from research and large data sets. She also earned a master's in public policy from the University of California, Berkeley. So of course, welcome Mary Ann to the stage, to the virtual stage. We'd like to just kind of go back and forth and have a conversation. I joked earlier that this is going to be kind of like the Oprah sit down special that you see on Netflix sometimes. So this is definitely more of a conversation. And for folks joining us, like I mentioned, please use the chat if you have any questions throughout this session. So the first big question, Mary Ann, is what made you want to be the founding executive director for C2C? What brought you here today?
Thank you so much, Sydney, and thanks to all of you who are here. We're just delighted that you're spending your time with us today. So many things. So I was just really thrilled to learn about the work that California was wanting to build with the Cradle-to-Career system. And I think what first drew me to this was the vision that was defined for it. So if you look on our website, you can see our vision is to foster evidence-based decision-making to help Californians build more equitable futures and empower individuals to reach their full potential. And that's what drew me into this work, the fact that focus on equity, the focus on using information that's brought together to improve decision-making and really help build opportunity and reduce barriers is what drew me to this work. A lot of times, in my prior work, I saw so many creative and innovative ideas kind of stall before they even got started because data was siloed in different places and couldn't be brought together for decision-making and learning. So, information existed, but it was kind of siloed and held in different places and couldn't be brought together to solve problems and identify solutions. And that's the problem that the Cradle-to-Career data system is seeking to solve. And that's what drew me to this. And I think I've just been in awe of all the work that was done over the last 2 years through a very ambitious and accelerated planning process that happened with over 100 public meetings over 18 months. Big shout out to Kathy Booth, who's with us here today, who led that process at WestEd. And the work that came from that and the ambition for this data system really was exciting to me, and that's why I was thrilled to move. I've been living here in California, but to be working closer to home again and bring all of the work that I've done at the national level and with different state and local governments here to California. So connected with that, another thing that made me excited and working on this project is learning about just how many educators and advocates and researchers and people within the state and different departments and agencies were engaged in that planning process and worked together to map out how should we bring the data together? What kinds of things should we build? What would be useful for people? So I've really been impressed by how the work was planned and how many people were engaged in that. So that's kind of big picture why I was really excited about doing this work. I think what California has planned is incredibly important. The last thing I'll just mention is that I do think this focus on equity and being inclusive is incredibly important. Both my parents got their GEDs in their 20s after they had kids. So the focus, in my life growing up, it was very salient to think about the different barriers that people face that look really different for different communities and people, that there are very nonlinear paths that somehow, oftentimes when you read about education and workforce and issues related to young people in the news and write-ups, it often seems like there's this very linear path, right? You enter in kindergarten, after having gone to preschool, you go through school, you graduate high school, you go to college, and then you launch the career of your choice. And there's so many other nonlinear paths that people take, and the importance of data systems like this and our focus on removing barriers and thinking about accessibility comprehensively is really important. So from that, from my personal background, I was really excited about California's focus on equity, and this ambition to be the most inclusive data system possible really spoke to me. So that's kind of how both the work itself and my personal motivation connected. And I'm just thrilled to be here.
Great, thank you. So leading into the next question, I think you kind of started to touch on this a little bit, but when you're explaining what C2C, what Cradle-to-Career is, what do you focus on? So I know you just mentioned a lot about the equity focus, a lot about like the student tools that that people can use when they're not going through a linear path to education. So if you can just talk about what do you focus on that C2C is going to do and that we're doing now?
Sure. And we have kind of three main areas that we focus on. So maybe we can bring up that visual if that's easy to do. But the big picture purpose of Cradle-to-Career is to connect people and organizations with trusted information and resources. So it's designed to kind of provide insights and critical milestones in this pipeline, right? From early learning and care to K-12 to higher education, skills training, employment, right? That's why it's called Cradle-to-Career. And so our goal is to kind of provide insights at every point along the way and to bring information together so that people can do that. So here you can see the main components of our work, and we'll talk about each of these 3 areas in turn here in a second. So in the top in green, you can see data on education and job outcomes. So this is what we're calling our research data set or our analytical data set. We just signed legal agreements last month with 15 other entities here in California who've all agreed to share their data with the Cradle-to-Career data system. So we're going to bring that information together so that we can then create a number of products that help you access the information in ways that best suits your needs. So a couple of different ways. One is through dashboards. So this is the Explore Visuals and Dashboards piece. So these dashboards, imagine the way they're intended is that they'll each tell a story about a specific topic. So one of the first dashboards, if you have been attending our governing board meetings, you'll have heard us talk about a dashboard on teacher training and retention. So this is something that came from the planning process. The people who were involved in that collaboratively decided that this would be a useful dashboard to start with. And it's intended to help answer questions related to the teacher shortage, related to thinking about what's the path that teachers take from where they're trained, where they receive their credentials, where they teach. Questions around retention of teachers as well. So imagine these dashboards will each tell a story about one specific topic or area that's relevant to kind of the cradle to career landscape overall. So those are the dashboards. Then we'll also have a query builder. So the idea here is that you'll be able to search across the 200 variables that were identified in the planning process and that we're planning to bring together to generate tables and charts. So this is like the choose your own adventure way to tap our research data set. So you can say, okay, I'm curious about outcomes for students who are transferring from community colleges to four-year institutions in my region, right? So the idea is that this will be a kind of choose your own adventure tool, this query builder that lets the public access aggregated, anonymized information from the data system. And then we'll also have a research request process. So researchers, as they currently can from individual departments and agencies, can come through a structured process that we'll develop to be able to access the data for research purposes as well. And then we'll also be working to build out a research library so that it's easy for you to visit our website and see what are some of the studies or insights that have come from the information that's been brought together. So all of this together is about the research data set, the data on education and job outcomes that already exists, right? We're not collecting new data that doesn't exist today. This is about information that's already collected and that already exists, but we together with our partners are bringing it together so that it's easier for you to access the information and insights from it. So that's one component of our work. And if we can go to the next. So the next is tools to support college planning and transition. So think of these as practical tools for students and families. And the idea behind them is to make it easier for students to navigate planning for college and career, accessing college and career planning tools and curriculum, monitoring tools to ensure students are on track for college and financial aid, and streamlining the college and financial aid application process. So for all of you who checked the box of parent, if you have high school age students or others that you're supporting or working with in navigating the application for college and financial aid, it's not easy. And so what all of this together, some of these tools are already live via californiacolleges.edu. Maybe we can drop a link to that in the chat. And this is a resource that the state is investing in and scaling up and making available over time to the districts in the state. So they're already free courses on navigating applying for financial aid that you can access there, and a lot of resources that schools and districts and parents and students can use to figure out, where am I in terms of my, A to G courses for applying to university, or how can I navigate applying to the FAFSA or the CADA? So we're making this available for free to districts. We're also working to scale up tools that streamline the process of electronic transcripts for college and transfer applications, and also to discover, to use these processes to make it more streamlined to discover if you're eligible for social services, such as medical care and food subsidies. So think of this as complementing that research data set we just talked about by being kind of data-focused tools that are really practical and useful for students and their families today to help navigate that transition from high school to college planning and all of that. So that's the second main component of our work. And the third component, which is called training and outreach on this graphic, but I think about more broadly as community engagement overall, is really to ensure that the work that we do is incredibly focused on what you as the end user of the system need, and that we're listening to you and learning from you right now, especially as we're at the starting point of building this system and moving forward. So some of this will involve us, ensuring that the work we do and what we learn is shared with all of you through summaries of key findings, trainings, technical assistance, and a lot of partnerships with advocacy organizations, with community organizations, with individuals, with educators to help spread the word about this work. Well, we can maybe talk about this more. I hesitate to just continue my monologue because we want to get to all of your questions, but our governance structure is such that we have advisory boards and lots of different mechanisms for people to provide their input and recommendations to our system. So the third main component is basically connecting with all of you, both learning from you and sharing what we're learning with you in real time as we build the data system.
So far we have a couple of questions. If you don't mind just answering a few that came in while you were discussing the tools. But first I do want to shout out, we did get someone saying this is super exciting, and then someone else mentioned what a great way to move from data silos to centralized data. So it looks like we're on the right track. But we did have two questions. Someone asked, will there be course level enrollment data in the system? So Marianne, I'm not sure if you want to take that question or if we want to bring in Kathy Booth from WestEd, but I'll defer to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that might have come up when I was talking about the practical tools to support college planning and transition. So the way that the californiacolleges.edu platform is designed is that it's run in partnership with local school districts and provide a portal, if you will, where a student can see their transcript level information and see, here are all the A to G requirements, for instance, and here's how here's the courses that I've completed, here's the courses that I still need to complete. So that's kind of at the individual level where students have access to that for their own information. So I think that's where that question came from. But I also want to introduce Kathy Booth, who is part of our planning process and led the planning process prior to our arrival, and would welcome Kathy adding any more detail on that if you'd like to.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of other ways that course level data will be integrated. One is the idea that you're going to be able to have electronic transcripts that are moving between post-secondary institutions. We're going to be scaling an existing tool called eTranscript California, and that's going to allow information to travel, but it's not going to be stored. It'll just literally be like a mailman, sort of taking a transcript from one institution to another. Within the analytical data set, there will be some reference to types of courses. For example, if students are in career and technical education courses or the highest math course that they completed when they were in high school. So there'll be some nods toward course level data, but the analytical data set is not going to be available for people to mine student transcripts.
And that's actually a great segue. Maybe Kathy, if you don't mind dropping a link in the chat to the part of our website where people can explore what those 200 data points are that came from the planning process, and that people can see what's envisioned for inclusion in that research data set that I mentioned at the beginning, which is a bit different from the college planning tools like californiacolleges.edu that we mentioned.
Absolutely. I'll put those links in so you can see what they are. That area of our website also shows what the planned dashboards are going to be. And just as importantly, what the expectation of the planning teams were about what different people could do. So what could parents do if they could see that information? What could advocates do if they see that information? Which is a great way for you to start giving us feedback about ways that you would imagine being able to use the data. So I'll get that link for you right now.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Marianne.
I was just saying the same thing. Go ahead.
Double thanks, Kathy. So I do see a ton of questions in the chat. So I just want to say my apologies if we can't get through them right now, but we are definitely taking notes. I did see one comment that I think is a really good segue to the next question. The comment was about if there's a specialist or a web developer on the team. And so I think that leads into the next question about what is your vision, Marianne, for the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data, which hosts the data system? So if you can talk about just your overall vision for our team and maybe give some insight on how our team is made up right now. I know there's only like 5 of us right now, but we're definitely trying to expand. So if you can talk a little bit about the team makeup as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sydney. Yeah, so I joined in February. We're definitely in the startup phase and building the team. We posted 4 jobs last month that just closed at the start of the month. So we're in the process of reviewing those applications. So we're building out the team right now, but the short answer is that yes, we do have a data architect on our team right now, and we currently have an RFP open that you can, is also linked to from our website, for the systems integration for the actual initial build of the backbone of the data system, as I mentioned, where we receive the data from our partners and can bring it together for that. So the vision for our team, a big picture, is that we're going to remain a relatively small team for the state especially. So we're not envisioning becoming a huge department, but just remaining a small and nimble team with a focus on having a team of professionals who work on the actual data infrastructure of bringing together the team, the information. We'll have a team of professionals focused on what we're calling data programs. So that's all of the work that I mentioned around the dashboards, insights, and creating that query builder. It will also be the team that's working closely with eTranscript California and California Colleges.edu on those practical tools. And then we'll have a team that's focused on communications and engagement with communities and with all of you, as well as operations. So that's kind of the vision for the team overall. I imagine that we will remain small and lean and really leverage our partnerships with all of our data providers across the state to do this work collaboratively. And one thing I'll just mention is, there was a piece that came out in EdSource this past week, and Ben Cheetah, who's the governor's chief deputy cabinet secretary, has been closely involved in leading this work, mentioned in that, we firmly believe that this isn't the government's data, this is the people's data, and we're simply the stewards. And I thought that was a really nice summary for how we want to go about doing this work. That's kind of the guiding principle for how we're building the team and how we're bringing our people together, which is that we're the stewards of bringing the information together in partnership with our data providers and making it available to you. And we'll really leverage, partnerships with you and with researchers who use this data to develop insights for it to be helpful and meaningful and, improving opportunity and reducing barriers. So that's kind of the big picture vision, is that we'll put together a team that can build a cradle-to-career data system that really provides important insights that advance equity and advance opportunity and make information available to you in a way that it can actually be used for decision making and for reducing barriers and improving opportunity.
Thank you. So let's see. We did have a question just really quickly. If you can repeat the 3 main teams for folks who may not have caught that. Sorry to put you on the spot again.
No, I'm happy to do that. And I also know that I talk too fast. So let me just slow down for a little bit. And maybe we can put some of this in the chat, just the main ones as well. So we have one data infrastructure team. We'll have a couple of key people, and then we'll work with contracts as well on data infrastructure. So data infrastructure, meaning the actual technical build of the data system and bringing the information together. So that's data infrastructure. The second part of the team is data programs. So that's kind of the bridge, if you will, between the data system itself, the information, and making it practical and useful. So data programs is going to focus on the dashboards and the practical tools. And then communications and engagement. So that's about, listening to all of you and learning from you, and also sharing what we're learning proactively through communications. So that team will work on, revamping our website and building our public presence. So those are the 3 main teams. And then we have an operations team as well, and a couple of additional important positions like legal counsel and our work with the boards and all of that.
Perfect, thank you. And I see Kathy and I both have the same idea. We both put that into the chat as you were talking. So you have double the information now in the chat. So let's see, let's get to another question for you, Marianne. So California is one of only a handful of states that does not have a longitudinal data system. Now that we're finally building one, how will C2C be different from other states?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One is, we do want to learn from other states who are a bit farther along in this path. I think this is a great opportunity for California to learn. We always want to be the first and most innovative in everything, and this is a great opportunity for us to learn. But I think there are a couple of key things. One is because we're building this now, it's an opportunity to use the latest technology and security protections for the work that we're building. The second component is, I think this is coming at a really exciting moment when California is making major investments to support students and young people in navigating this entire, cradle-to-career landscape and timeline. So I think that the data system is happening at a moment where we're making these major investments, and it can really inform and complement that. And I think the other really defining and important part of this is how inclusive the data system and its governing structure have been envisioned. So we have a very inclusive governance structure. I report to a 21-person board that's composed roughly half of the data providers who are sharing the data with the system. And the other half approximately are public members who are appointed and share the perspectives of the entities who need to use this information for decision making. In addition to that governing board, we also have two 16-person advisory boards. We have a data and tools advisory board, we have a community engagement advisory board, and those are formal structures that provide a mechanism for ensuring that our governing board hears your recommendations and your thoughts on how this data system should be structured. So I think there's real potential for us to build the most inclusive data system of its kind in the country, and that's a major focus for us.
Great, thank you. So we'll move into the next kind of segment of today's conversation. So if we can go ahead and launch another polling question for you all. Which component of C2C are you most interested in using? The college planning and transition tools, the analytical tools like dashboards and query builders, or the community engagement and outreach tool. So we just want to kind of just get a sense of what you're most interested in, especially for your organization or your sector, your industry, so we can make sure that we have that information and kind of tailor our messages to the right audience as well. So I'll give you a few seconds to put in your option. You can see on the screen, we're sharing the 3 components that we're talking about. So you have that as a reference as well. Okay, and then while everyone is filling out the poll, I do see a question about the 2 advisory boards. Yes, so our 2 advisory boards again are the Data and Tools Advisory Board and the Community Engagement Advisory Board. I'll put a link in the chat to our website that offers a ton more of information about our boards. I know it's a lot. There are 3 boards that we have. So I will put that link in the chat for you to take a look at that as well. Okay, and we'll give it about another 30 seconds or so. Not 30 seconds, sorry, like 10 seconds. I realize 30 seconds is quite a long time to sit here in awkward silence. So we'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay, let's see, Samantha, are we good to close? Okay, perfect. So I have the poll results up here. So it looks like most of you, 70% of you, are interested in the analytical tools like dashboards and query builders. 20% are interested in college planning and transition tools, and 9% are interested in community outreach and engagement. And I do see a comment in the chat that someone else kind of has an other perspective. And they said, I'm most interested in how students and their parents can get access to their own data in a portable form. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. So I think that gives us just a really good idea of one, who's here today, and then two, what kinds of things are Californians looking for out of this data system. So Marianne, I don't know if you have any reflections about, the poll results. 70% are interested in those analytical tools like the dashboards and the query builders. So do you have any reflections about that you'd like to share?
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think we're hoping to move as expeditiously as we can in building the system and making different dashboards available. And then I think the query builder in particular, as I mentioned, that's the choose your own adventure part of this, is the one that I imagine will be of great interest to all of you, because it lets you kind of zero in and zoom in on the information that's that you want most, depending on how you want to slice and dice the data and the information. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I imagine the college planning and transition tools are incredibly important. They're also relevant during a very specific stage of one's life. And so I think those are a bit different from the analytical system, and we can think about how the two work together and complement. So thank you for sharing that.
Perfect. So let's see. I don't see any other questions or comments about this one. But I do have another question. What are ways communities can benefit from the Cradle-to-Career system, and how will it inform the work that they do? So Marianne, if you want to just start us off with answering that question, and then I invite everyone on the call to put your answers to this question in the chat as well. So this can be a little bit interactive for you all, because we definitely want to hear from our community of how you feel this would benefit you as well. But Marianne, if you want to start us off with answering that question, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney. And I'd really, just to echo what Sydney mentioned, would really welcome all of you to put in the chat how you think this information could be most useful. So how can it, what are some of the ways? I think it ranges from, the very individual and specific. You can imagine a student and their parent logging on to californiacolleges.edu and using that information to apply to college and understand, how do I ensure I get credit for the courses that I've taken, and, what other classes do I need to make sure I take so I can apply to the college I'd like to go to. And that's kind of at a very micro level, or it's one family, one person looking at the information and making decisions based on that. And then you can imagine at a much more aggregated level, perhaps you're in advocacy, or maybe you're, working and volunteering in your local school district, and there's information that you want to know that you think you can then use for decision-making, or for informing an argument or an idea that you'd like to pitch to various decision makers or within your own community. The information that will be available in the query builder or from the dashboards can inform that. You say, what are the numbers right now? What barriers are students facing? Or like where would we like to make changes, or what do we want to celebrate that's going well? And having information that links together, what's happening, before K-12 starts, during K-12, and afterwards across this entire Cradle-to-Career spectrum. The idea is to bring the information together and then let you, the researchers, the educators, and others take that information and use it for what you think would be most useful. So let me pause with that, and I'll just, take a moment here to look at all of the ideas that you're sharing in the chat on this.
Yeah, so far we have 2 comments in response to this question. So the first one is, someone said, I'd like to show students multiple options that match their interests and skills, including technical education and trade options. And then the second comment was to provide a better experience for students and schools, understanding the educational ecosystem of their communities. So please keep those responses coming in the chat. Let's see, I see another one. A way to support students and families with support services and educational opportunities along the journey to see opportunities and gaps. And let's see, I think that's it as far as responses so far, but please, we definitely want to hear from you. So please keep putting your responses in the chat to this question. Without this knowledge, we definitely will not be able to make this system work for you and what your needs are. So please give us the feedback on how you think your community can benefit from this as well. Let's see. Oh, I see someone saying matching need with services. So Marianne, I don't know if you have any reflections about any of those comments. Most of them seem to be focused on showing students options, just giving them a better experience overall for navigating the educational system. So if you want to maybe talk about C2C's goals and doing that a little bit more, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm seeing in the comments kind of two main themes. One is having the information available for navigation purposes, right? So to make, whether it's the transition to college or other moments in time, easier to navigate because the information is brought together and accessible in a useful way. So one theme I've seen is kind of on navigation. The other theme I'm seeing is people identifying opportunities for the information to illuminate and improve our understanding of something, right? So where are the needs the highest? Where can we invest resources? You know, all of the kind of the matching, one of the comments I see here is, you know, matching need with services, right? How can we use this information to ensure that we have the best understanding we possibly can of how our students and young people are doing in different areas, how to disaggregate the data. I think one of the aspects of the 200 data points that, you know, I see you're exploring on our website is that it will enable people to really disaggregate by different demographics or by different regions or, you know, for different subgroups of students and really understand improve understanding in that nuanced and disaggregated way.
And I see another comment, and this just got me thinking because most of my state experience was in healthcare. So someone said in the healthcare workforce, we always are needing to spend a lot of time educating folks on the many pathways and making sure they have the prerequisites for these different pathways. We're currently working on making sure these different pathways link up and stack. So navigation would definitely be helpful for our population. So I just wanted to highlight that comment in particular, especially just we know we're going through a pandemic in our society and that there was definitely a healthcare worker shortage. And so just having just an easy resource that people can go to see, you know, how can they join the healthcare workforce? I know many moons ago, I considered myself trying to become a doctor. Obviously, that did not work out for many reasons, but I remember as a young college student trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do for prereqs? What GPA do I need? Do my credits transfer here? Do they not? What tests do I need to take and things like that? So I just wanted to highlight that in particular, that, you know, this data system it's not just, you know, a place to house data. It's definitely something that people can use to benefit our community. If we can launch a system where someone can figure out how they can become a nurse, a registered nurse, or you know, a pediatrician, and it made that pathway easier for them, I think we can consider ourselves a success. So definitely wanted to highlight that comment. And Marianne, I don't know if you have anything to add to that as well.
Nothing to add to that specifically. Thank you.
Perfect. So let's see. Someone else said, this is so exciting. I want to know everything about the pre-K data, support, suggestions, website pages, areas of focus, all of it with a big smiley face. So we are definitely trying to make that our goal. Let's see. Going through the comments some more, we had, I think that was kind of it as far as responses to that direct question. If you have anything else to add, please put it in the chat. I see one other person said, continued navigation from entry into a career and building ongoing skills as adults and or intersecting with those who provide similar support. So I think we've touched on that. So thank you so much for that comment. That's definitely something we're trying to do with the outfacing tools as well. And then Kathy highlighted californiacolleges.edu as well. Okay, so I'll just do a quick last call for any more responses to this question, but please don't feel limited. You can definitely keep putting your comments in the chat. We're coming up on about 15 minutes left, so we will definitely take any other comments about this question back, and you know, definitely will definitely give us more to think about. So
I was just going to jump in, Sydney, while we're giving people that extra minute. I did see a couple of questions about the speed at which data is going to, how often we'll load the data. I'm happy to answer that if that fits in with your.
Sure.
Okay, so at a minimum, we'll receive data from our data providers once a year. We're going to start we're going to start and take steps. So I just wanted to answer that because I saw a couple of the chats saying like, can it be real time? Will the dashboards be updating in real time? So to start out with, we're going to get data at a minimum of once a year, and we'll start building the system and see whether there are some components of the data that we can do much more frequently in real time, but just wanted to share that. So I saw some questions about that.
Thank you. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. So we want to probably go to the next kind of portion just to give us some time for a bit of reflection. So this is our first community conversations event. So we definitely want to hold more of these events, connect with our community, connect with you all who are on the call today and more. So if you have any ideas for what you would like future sessions to cover, please feel free to drop those in the chat. We can cover things like what our data providers are doing, maybe having some previews to our board meetings, any identifying barriers or problems that our work can help solve. So please put any of your ideas about what future community conversations events can cover. We definitely love to hear your feedback. And I'll turn it over to Marianne while you all are putting your thoughts in the chat to just kind of talk more about what her goal was for these community conversations as well.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Sydney. So as you know, we have board meetings and formal advisory board meetings, which are subject to Bagley-Keene. That's the California's open meeting law. And those meetings are open to the public. You can attend them, you can watch them on Zoom, you can provide public comment either in person or remotely. So we have these meetings that are open to the public, but they're formal, right? And public comment is quite structured, and you know, it's at just certain points in the meeting. And so we thought that these community conversations would be a nice way to complement that in a much less formal setting where you can come, and over time, as Sydney highlighted, we can shape the agendas based on what you would find useful. So sometimes we can just have it be open and see what questions you would like to share with us, or we can have them function more like a fireside chat with one of our data providers or with others in the space who are doing work that you might find interesting. So the idea is basically to just create a less structured opportunity for us to hear from you and what your questions are, and for you to share your ideas with us. So that's kind of how we're imagining these community conversations to complement the more formal governing board and advisory board meetings that we host.
Thank you. So far we have in the chat, someone would like to know more about the data providers. And two people mentioned that this is a smart approach and that this is a great format for listening and to provide feedback. So again, just please feel free to drop in more of your ideas. Oh, I see another one. How does the program intend to connect with teens? I think, yes, we can definitely spend a lot of time talking about our intention to connect with younger students as well. So thank you for that. I'm just taking that down as a note. If we have any other ideas, please put them in the chat. We will definitely do our due diligence with formatting these community conversations events to your needs, because we're definitely trying to do more outreach and more engagement with you all as part of our community so that we can have a successful implementation of the C2C system and it not just be, just a data warehouse. We definitely want to make sure that we create a system that works for everyone. So we definitely would love to hear your comments and your feedback to this question. Oh, and someone said students with disabilities and Department of Rehabilitation. Yes. I used to work at Department of Rehabilitation, so that's a soft spot for me. Yes, love that idea. Okay, I'm going to do another kind of last call for comments. And if you have any other ideas, like if you wake up tonight in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I think the community conversations event should talk about this, please feel free to email us directly. I will put that email address in the chat as well, so everyone has it. But we love to hear from our partners. Oh, I see a couple of other ones. Let's see, veterans reintegration use cases would be great too. Okay, perfect. Let me take that down. And I think that was it. Oh, noting the limits on the collecting. Okay, so I see that question as well. So we will take that down as an idea. Thank you. So with that being said, we have about 10 minutes before we reach time. Marianne, do you have any last thoughts, any last reflections that you'd like to share with the group?
No, thank you for this. I'm scrolling through the chat and looking at all the comments that people are sharing and the ideas. So we'll definitely, my ability to absorb everything in real time as it scrolls is somewhat limited, but as Sydney mentioned, we're going to save the chat and really go through those comments in detail. So thank you for sharing that. I think one reflection, just looking at the future sessions, it sounds like in addition to kind of some sessions that are more open and free flowing to just see what questions you have, there seems to be a lot of appetite for tailoring the sessions towards a specific topic. So going much deeper and saying, how can we, how can the system focus on this subset of students, or, these communities, or this particular challenge or problem. So I think that's one thing I'm taking away from your comments, is that it might be helpful, because what we're talking about is really big, that it might be helpful to have future sessions focus in on kind of one subcomponent or one area of it, so we can go a little bit deeper and answer your questions at a deeper level. So that's what I'm getting from it, but would love a quick, thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat if that resonates, or if you're like, no, keep it general. I want to hear about just the big picture stuff. So we can definitely take that to heart. The other piece that I just wanted to share, just to be really clear again, CaliforniaColleges.edu up and running exists. Like, go check out the website, see what resources are there today. The data system, as I mentioned, we've signed the legal agreements. We have an RFP open to build it. We're at stage 0. So there's really a tremendous opportunity for your input to be really valuable in helping steer the ship, if you will, where we're going. I'm trying to figure out how many metaphors I can mix into one long sentence here. But that's why I'm just really grateful that you're taking the time to talk with us now, and welcome, to continue to drop in the chat ideas for future sessions. So, for example, lots of questions about CaliforniaColleges.edu. We could invite our colleagues who run that program to come and do a session where you can hear directly from them and from students and educators who've used the program. We could, do some more focused work on some of the other topics that you're mentioning. So happy to do that.
And in response to your request for thumbs up, you are receiving a ton of thumbs up. So it looks like we're on the right track for future sessions as well. And we just got a couple of comments just saying, yes, that works. That sounds like a good idea. So thank you. And it looks like people are excited. So that is great to hear. We're excited as well. So I'm just checking the chat one more time just to make sure I didn't miss any other comments about future sessions. So thank you so much. First, thank you to Marianne for sitting in and letting me grill you on your thoughts about Cradle-to-Career. Thank you so much to Kathy Booth from West Ed, who provided some support for today's call, and who also led the year-long planning process to get us where we are today. And then thank you again to Collaborative Communications for helping us with all things logistics and for planning this wonderful event. Just wanted to give you all a shout out as well. And just thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you for joining us on your lunch break. I know time is of the essence. I know you all are probably starving, or if you're stuffing your face while you're on this call, I applaud you, because I wish I could do the same. But thank you so much for taking your hour to spend with us and learn more about our team and our hopes for the Cradle-to-Career system. So again, if you have any last comments, please put it in the chat. Like we mentioned, we do save the chat, so we'll be able to see them before we end. And then if you would like to join us again for our next community conversation, it is planned for July. A date will be posted on our website soon. And you can also sign up for our newsletter, where we send out updates about upcoming events, such as our board meetings, ad hoc meetings, and things like that. So please check out our website. It's c2c.ca.gov. I'll put that in the chat. And please reach out to us as well. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your ideas. So thank you so much to all of you, and we hope to talk with everyone soon. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.